Good morning. Wanted to do a continuance here. Um, Not going to do, probably only going to do most likely one or two more um, videos on this kind of deeper series or deeper understanding of the mind, the heart, the spirit in regards to trees and the greater meaning of it and why it's been two trees from the beginning. Um, I am going to kind to show you uh, what it means or what does it mean to be cursed, those that are hung on a tree. That is what it says. Cursed are those that are hung on a tree. And of course, this is being spoken of Christ himself, that the interpretation of the hanging on the tree of it being a curse. What does a curse mean? What language is being used in terms of curse? Um, and I'm not, I got it, like I said, there's always been a beginning of good and evil. There's always been a beginning of the right choice and the wrong choice. There, the two trees that were in the midst of the garden um, that were there and existed. Why was there a need for a tree of good and evil if Adam was already perfect before he fell? Why was there a need of good and evil? And in fact, is the tree of good and evil actually good at all? What does it actually mean? So these are things that are very different or deep in understandings, and how if you go through your Bible and you actually study it and you see it, you'll see it in a tremendous meaning of what trees represent and how they are oftentimes related to good and they're oftentimes related to much evil. And when you look at it in a sense of the darkness of it, you'll see tremendous amount of scriptures in the Old Testament relating to them, the people, the nations, individual people within their own heart, seeking the foreign gods or strange gods under every green tree. And what does the green tree represent? What tree are they talking about? Is it actually a tree? This is the thing that we have to understand. Everything in the Old Testament is a physical testament, okay? I'm not sitting here saying, well, let's play Mickey Mouse and use our mind to just sit there and say, let's just spiritually turn this whole Bible away. No, I'm not saying that, because we have to understand that the physical had to come first. Okay, the physical had to come first and then the spiritual. Okay, if you do not understand worldly things or earthly things, like you cannot begin to understand the deeper things or the beginning of the Spirit of God that was from the beginning, which was all spirit, with a truer essence of the meaning, which is all to do with the battle of the heart and the mind. We are just flesh. We are just complete flesh dung on this earth. It's a so-called, what the world would call a matrix. It's all pre-planned. It's all, you have no real understanding of what has happened, where we are, etc., etc., etc. Everything that you are doing everywhere, anytime you leave your house, and even depending on who you are within your own house, is complete destruction. Everything is to destroy. When you actually look at things, and I don't want to go off on a tangent, but when you actually look at the world you live in today, everything about this world is trying to kill you. Everything, even right down from going down to the city street or the town street and seeing all the signs for McDonald's and Wendy's and you name it, A&W. I mean, it's just over and over again, right? Like these signs and these fast food places. I mean, the food, right? Your body's the temple. Look what's in this food. Look what's in the ingredients. It's killing us. It's killing you. It's murder everywhere you look. It's murder of the spirit and it's murder of your physical body. This is why you're in the cursed generation. You're in the cursed fig tree generation, or how we understand a lot of them is that, oh, it's the fig tree generation, and we're going to get raptured out of here. And you have no idea what you're talking about when you say those things about, oh, he's talking about this and the fig tree, and like, you have to study to understand what he's talking about here, what he actually means by that. And then we'll start to be able to put together as a group of brethren of, okay, let's put this together to find out, where are we? Where actually are we in the timeline? It seems to be more and more obvious that we're actually past Christ's millennial reign. I mean, this is what I'm trying to see here. Again, I'm not going to get off, but I'm just saying there's so much to do with the fact that everything is not what it seems. And with us being born and our parents being born into these generations, you never had a chance. And that's why I keep repeatedly saying that you have to seek within. You have to find that branch within you and to self-evaluate it and determine if you're actually bearing good fruit or if you're rotten. And this is the true knowledge of the Spirit, which is to have self-reflection, to see what your branch looks like, because you are part of the tree of life, and the tree of life is Jesus Christ. And this will be another video I'll show where from the beginning there was two choices, and it all started from the beginning. Remember, what does he tell us? He says, give me the, what does he say? Give me the glory that I had with you before the foundation of the world. What does that actually mean? Where is he pulling this from? What does this all mean? But that will be for another video, and then I'll finish off on the actual fig tree, understanding and how it has nothing to do with what a lot of these prominent Christian teachers on YouTube and other things, that they think that this fig tree and counting the 70 years and we're all going to be raptured out of here. I mean, it's unfortunate. I'm not looking my eyes or nose down upon them, because listen, we all are given different knowledge and understanding. We're not all right, and we're not all wrong. So everybody in their own time, everybody in their own order. That's how I see it. And this falls in line with this video today. Okay, cursed is he who hangeth on a tree. Okay, that's basically what it says. And of course, in our understanding, they give us this type of cross, right? This cross figure that they show us. That's this whole cross understanding of the crucifix, and the crosses that are hanging all over these so-called churches of the world, and parading around this Jesus guy on this so-called cross, when in fact it's actually talking about a tree, and it's actually talking about a stake, and it's actually talking about wood. And in fact, it's not even talking about a tree, wood, or a stake. It's a deeper understanding, deeper meaning of why it is cursed, okay, and what does it mean, all right? But where did he pull this from? This is the video today. Where did he pull this from? Okay, where are we understanding this cursed from the hanging on a tree? Remember, he cannot take away anything from the Bible. Christ came, he was the Old Testament, he is the Bible. He never added, he never took away. It says, remember, I don't take away or add, I fulfill. That means the word of God. There was nothing new that he said, nothing new under the sun. Everything that he said, he spoke in spirit. That's why they didn't understand him, and that's why they wanted to kill him, among tremendous other reasons. But my point is that he has to pull these things from somewhere. And of course, he pulls it from the Torah, because he is the living Torah. He is the spiritual end fulfillments of the Torah. The Torah is everything. So where does he pull this from? Where is this all being pulled from? Why is it being pulled? What is it showing us? Is it showing us a story from the beginning? Is it showing us being in the so-called middle of that garden, or in the midst of the house of pleasure, or the midst of the mind of the choice between good and evil, or staying with, in Adam's sense, staying within that nakedness with God, which unfortunately for him, it got old, and he became carnal before Eve even showed up. That's why he seeked it. But my point is that we have to seek this stuff. We have to understand that it's a battle of the mind and the heart. Okay, the heart, the vine, Christ is the vine, you are the branch. Okay, be pruned by the Father so that you may continue to bear fruit. Don't be cast down in the lake of fire in the next age, or when we're whatever this age is, or whenever we move on to death, or whatever it might be. We do not want to be in that lake of fire, cleansing state. We should be going through it now, and this is what I want to show. I want to show this story here of cursed who's hung on a tree from the beginning. This whole series is about tree, tree, tree. And I'm going to add on a little bit of other symbolism as we go in this video until I wrap this whole thing up. Because I got to get back to more of a simple thing, which is overcoming your body, overcoming your mind. I wanted to do this series because I wanted to show that it's a battle within the mind, and it's all about being within that hedged fortress, or that hedged defending hedge, being within it. So you're within Christ and Father, and they're defending you from your power of the air adversary. That's what this is all about, and it's all about overcoming, and you have to seek deeper. You have to seek within the hedge. There's a reason why he's called the son of the dawn, okay, or the world would call the son of the morning. He's the son of the dawn, or, the dawn of the dead in the Hollywood, right? Because he starts to attack you from the moment you wake up. And men, there's a lot of ways he does. I laugh, I'm getting off track, but I remember a guy that when I was younger, they were always making a joke about the old morning wood. Okay? Isn't that funny that they would use that term, morning wood? And I didn't really understand it at the time, but then I came to figure out after, as I got older, what he meant by waking up every morning and having wood, and why he had that, and couldn't understand. I remember him saying, I don't know why. We don't know why. Well, no, exactly. But what a meaning that is for a male, and why the son of the dawn, or son of the morning, when you wake up, you can't understand why you have sometimes the thoughts that you have, which are completely evil, and in the so-called morning wood that you have, and why it's there, and where it came from. This is all spiritual stuff, guys. It's very perverted. It's a very perverted state. This world is completely perverted, and for great meaning and great reason. So now that I've kind of went on in a little bit of a tangent here, I'm going to move on and stick to the notes here as best as I can. So let's look at this cursed. Okay, cursed, the so-called cursed. We're looking at the picture here, of course, of the blockbuster movie there of Passion, and you have the two guys on the right and the left, and then obviously Christ in the middle on the trees, because that's what I call them. And where does this come from? What are we talking about here? Okay, and we're going to have this guy here, which is who it's all about, when we understand the two differences between good and evil, or Christ and Satan, Lucifer, the devil, whoever you want to call him, the adversary, the power of the air, the part of the brain that is bringing forth evil and wickedness, the one that man has allowed into their house, into their mind, to be corrupted, and God has turned them over to be reprobate. This is all the understanding of this hedged garden of the mind. But this story actually comes from the beginning, and it actually comes from Genesis 40. And I'm going to show here how this is played out right in Genesis 40. And you're going to see some patterns and connections, and we're going to finish it off at the end with the birds of the air. But let's begin here, and I'm not going to read the whole chapter. Well, yeah, probably I will. This is a good interpretation. This is a good translation. There's many translations that you should look for. But first, we're just going to read this, which it says, Christ has redeemed us from the curse of the law, being made a curse for us. For it is written, cursed every one that hangeth on a tree. Every one. Okay, that's everyone, whosoever, whatsoever. Okay, that is everyone. All right, and why on a tree? Remember, this whole study is with the tree, right? Are you being brought down before the nightfall, or are you still hanging on that tree all night long, which is the actual curse? Oh, man, okay. He has redeemed us from the abominable evil, is actually what this actually means. not curse, but the abominable evil of the law being made abominable evil for us. For it is written that abominable evil everyone that is hung on a tree or left on the tree. Now, the abominational evil is what is essentially mankind's mind. The law was put in place for what? To show man his sin. And those that are being left on the tree or staying on the tree and have not been brought down type, we're using symbolic language here. That has not been brought down, okay, or taken off or redeemed, they are being left for the birds of the air to consume. All right, let's take a look here, and we're going to go all the way back to the start of the book. And I'm going to bounce back and forth because I like to use the Strongs to show you deeper meanings so we can put this together in the understanding of the mind. All right. And it came to pass after these things that the butler of the king of Egypt and the baker had sinned against their lord, the king of Egypt. Then fell the wrath of Pharaoh upon his two courtiers, or this means royal ones that are actually within the king's presence daily, all the time, serving him. All right. This is God showing us a story from the beginning, and this is him, and I'm going to show you this as a way of showing him being Pharaoh and Christ and Judas being the two. You got to see this, okay? God does this a lot of times with, Nebuchadnezzar or all these things, okay? There's lots of symbolism that God uses to show himself or Christ in a position of power and writes the story from the beginning to the end, okay? Knowing the end from the beginning. Okay, so God is clearly upset here as Pharaoh is upset, right? Clearly we understand why, okay? So he delivered them up into the house of the chief of the royal executioners in the prison, the place where Joseph was imprisoned, and the chief of the royal executioners charged Joseph with them, and he waited upon them, and then they were some days inward or in the prison, okay? Joseph is a representation of tremendous, he's gotten the, okay, I'm not going to get into that. Okay, and they dreamed a dream, all right? And I'm only going to touch on this whole understanding of the tree and the whole understanding of Judas, which is the spirit of Judas, which is evil or Satan or the power of the air, and Christ himself being the one that paid the penalty and shed his blood. Okay, this is just a showing you here a parallel, but there's major other implications just to this kind of some so-called parable or so-called story that is given here in Genesis. All right, Joseph came to them. Okay, and they dreamed a dream. Each man his dream, and one night, each man according to the interpretation of his dream. The butler, okay, the one that serves drink, okay, drink my flesh, right? Okay, drink my blood, sorry. And the baker who belonged to the king of Egypt, who were imprisoned in the prison, all right? And Joseph came in unto them in the morning, and he looked at them, and lo, they were sad. So he asked Pharaoh's courtiers, who were with him in the ward of the Lord's house, all right, saying, the ward of the Lord's house, all right? We gotta, all right, I'm not going to get off track, but you got to put this in the spirit here, okay? Why are your faces troubled? And they said unto him, a dream we have dreamed, but there is none to interpret it. Then said Joseph unto them, is it not unto God the interpretations belong? Relate it, I pray you, to me. And the chief of the butlers related his dream to Joseph, and said to him, in my dream then, lo, a vine before me. All right, who's the vine? Well, we can go to the New Testament, but you should already know. Who is the vine? Who is the only vine? Jesus Christ. And in the vine 3 shoots. And the same at the sprouting time had shot up her blossom, and her clusters had brought to perfection ripe grapes. 3 times a year, your male should, what? Appear before me, all right? 3 times a year, your male should appear before me. What does that mean? Where are we finding this? This is in the law. This is in the appointed times, okay? This is the restitution of all things. Now the cup of Pharaoh being in hand, I took the ripe grapes and pressed them out into the cup of Pharaoh and set the cup upon Pharaoh's palm. What's he saying here? Who is being pressed up out? Who's being pressed? Whose blood is being shed within the cup? This is the cup in the New Testament. This is the blood that's shed for many. Okay, and the blood was what? The blood was given as a sacrifice. To who Pharaoh? Or to who's Pharaoh in this story? God. Okay? And it was given to him as a perfect atoning sacrifice for all man. All right? You got to see this. And Joseph said to him, that is the interpretation thereof. This is the interpretation thereof. The three shoots are 3 days, and in 3 days more will Pharaoh lift up thy head and restore thee in thine office, and thou shalt set the cup in Pharaoh's hand, according to the former custom when thou was his butler. Wow, there's a lot here. Okay, there is a tremendous lot here, but we're going to stick to it. So you got 3 days and 3 days more, 3 days and 3 nights. You got your 3 days and 3 nights, 3 days and then 3 days more, 3 days and 3 nights. 3 days and 3 nights. What happened? Christ was resurrected. Okay, then he'll lift up his head and restore him. Okay, Father, give me the glory with you within the foundation of the world. He was the perfect atoned sacrifice. He was the wave sheaf. Okay, his blood and only his blood would have been accepted in God's hands for him to have the perfect atoning sacrifice for all man. All right? And he's restored where? Why is he restored back into his office? What's Christ's office? Sitting at the right-hand side of the Father, part of the Elohim. Okay, who is he? Well, he's returning to his former glory. This is what this is talking about. Former custom. Wow, former glory. Incredible. And then he says, if you remember me, then I pray thee with loving kindness, make mention unto me. God, okay, bring forth the house. Okay. For I was stolen out of the land of the Hebrews, and even here I've done nothing that they should put me in the dungeon. All right, I'm not going to get into that, but you're sold under sin. And this is what that kind of means. I'm not going to speak on that. Then the chief of the bakers. So here we go. We're going to see now. We're going to really take a look here at what this is actually talking about. Then the chief of the bakers, seeing that he had well interpreted, said to Joseph, seeing. Wow, he started to see. What did he start? He started perceiving in his mind this man was evil. Okay, he's seen the butler here, or Christ, right? He's seen that this guy was good, and he got a good interpretation or a good reward, or he was going to be restored, right? And he was thinking to himself, oh, wow, I want to do that. He was seeing, he was perceiving, he was vanity, right? It was just this all goes back to the tree here with Eve. Seeing that it was good for what, right? This guy wasn't looking to have anything to do with Joseph. He was this guy was completely evil. You gotta understand, this is the Judas spirit, all right? And seeing that it was well interpreted, this guy was going to go and run to him to get the same sort of reward as what he thought. What did Judas do? Judas was a follower of Jesus Christ, right? But what happened in Judas's mind? Did he all of a sudden think, maybe Christ isn't going to set up his kingdom on earth right now? Oh man, maybe I'm not going to reign right now in my flesh, because he was all flesh, right? So what did he do? He went and sold him, right? He went and bought and sold him for money. It's the same sort of concept here. Joseph, I too was in a dream, and lo, 3 wicker baskets of bread were on my head. And in the uppermost basket was some of every kind of food for Pharaoh that a baker could make. Let me show you something here. What this is actually saying. And Joseph answered, okay. It says here, and the chief baker saw. Okay, there's that saw again. We've seen that in the beginning. He said unto Joseph, I had a dream, and there were 3 white baskets. What kind of baskets? Pendulous or osier trees. And what are pendulous and osier trees? They're willow trees, but what are they? They are droopy branches or downward loose branches. Think about this now. You got to understand what he's talking about here. On my head, 3 white willow or droopy, okay? Droopy, do this yourself. Seek this stuff out yourself. Loose, downward driven branches on my head. Okay? In my head, he's saying. This is showing you what? This is the story of the evilness, the fall of Judas. Okay? Judas was falling. And he fell. And upon his head, it talks about a tree that was upon his head, which is a willow or an osier or a pendulous, meaning droopy, loose, downward spiraling. Incredible. A numerous basket of all manner of baked meats for Pharaoh. The birds did eat them out of the basket upon my head. And Joseph answered and said, this interpretation thereof, 3 baskets in 3 days. Yet within 3 days shall Pharaoh lift up thy head from off thee, and thou shalt hang thee on a tree. And the birds shall eat thy flesh from off thee. So here we have this understanding of the good and evil, the 2 trees, okay, the Judas spirit, the Judas here from the beginning. Christ had to pull this from the Torah. Nothing can be added or taken away. Okay, but you have this here where he's hung on a tree after 3 days or 3 nights. It's the same meaning, same parallel of Judas putting him up. Judas being what? He put him up and did what? What did he do? He put him up to be crucified, and Judas was what? Hanging on a tree for 3 days and 3 nights. And it has nothing to do with him snapping the branch and him going down and busting his guts open. I'm going to show you what it says. Okay, but this is what he's showing here from the beginning. And the birds of the air were eating his flesh from upon his head. This is what is being talked about here. What is he saying? What is actually happening here with the birds of the air? All right? The basket here, the guy, the birds, right? Birds of the air. Remember that, birds of the air. All right, eating the flesh of this baker's head, who was on a downward spiral, okay, which is Judas, representation of Judas from the beginning, being hung on a tree. One that was hung in a tree was taken down before the morning, and the other was left to be hung for the birds of the air to consume the flesh thereof. Okay? Eat the flesh from off thee. All right? Feed off the sins of you. This is what this is saying. All right? And we get this from the law. Also, we got to bring in the law. Deuteronomy 21 is a great chapter. And we see here in Deuteronomy 21, we see if a man, that's about the stubborn son that was cast down and had to be stoned. And if a man had committed a sin worthy of death, and he be to be put to death, and thou hang him on a tree, his body shall not remain all night upon the tree. But thou shalt in any wise bury him that day. For he that is hanged is accursed of God, that the land be not defiled with the Lord thy God given thee for an inheritance. So this man that's being hung on the tree has to be what? He has to be taken down within that day. Cannot what? Have night come upon him. All right? Cannot have night come upon him. What does this mean? What is all of this trying to say here? What are we seeing here between Judas and Christ? Okay, between the baker and the butler. All right? All to do with what? Being on that tree. Okay, and what happens on that tree when you're hung on that tree and not taken down that day? What happens? What happens to the mind when you're not redeemed and buried? What? Buried with him. What does it say? Buried with me, that you may be born again in me. That you may be what? Spirit. So if you're drinking from the cup that was what? Just poured out in the hand of Pharaoh. If you're drinking from that cup of his blood, and then you are what? Buried, or you're hung on that tree, right? That tree, what's this tree represent? Right? I'm not going to give everything to you. You have to understand what this means. and that you were buried with him for 3 days and 3 nights, and you rise up a new man, versus those that have what? Denied him and are still being left on that tree, hung, being consumed by the birds of the air. Consumed by the birds of the air. Okay, the birds of the air, which is unclean spirits. Unclean spirits is what it means. So let's take a quick little peekaboo here at 22, and we'll see that what happened. Then entered Satan into Judas, being one of the 12. So Satan actually entered into Judas, or into his right hand, into his part of his mind that was going to now be completely defiled and in corruption. And he was going to betray from the beginning, as we understand, the Son of Man, the evil spirit that is still lingering more now than ever in this world. It's actually completely in open state and enjoyed, and you cannot leave your house without seeing this man on the tree. The men on the tree are everywhere. Okay? Matthew 27. 3-5. And Judas was betrayed him, saw that he was condemned, repented himself, and brought again the 30 pieces of silver. Okay, even though he wanted to repent, there was no repentance found for him. I have sinned, and I have betrayed innocent blood. And they said, what to us that thou hast done? And thou cast down the pieces of silver in the tree and the temple, and departed, and went and hung himself. He went and hung himself. Okay? He went and hung himself. On the what? On the tree. Okay, and he was left on the tree. Who is the tree? What is the representation of this tree? Which tree is it from the beginning of the garden? The tree of life or the tree of good of knowledge? The one that all the mankind goes under and worships and serves, all under those green trees, right? As the Bible tells us. But the good thing about Judas is that he knew, the good thing for Judas is that under the law, he will be redeemed. Because it says here, he has sinned against innocent blood. Well, lucky for Judas, it tells, I'm going to just touch on this. Lucky for Judas, innocent blood has been covered by the heifer, or the red heifer, or Jesus Christ himself. Okay? Am I merciful unto the people Israel, whom thou hast redeemed, and lay not innocent blood unto the people. Okay? He will be redeemed after he goes through his purification through the cleansing of the lake of fire. Okay? But this has been covered. But let's take a look at Acts 1 and get a little bit deeper understanding of this butler and baker, and understanding what this tree represents, and understanding that the birds of the air. All right, we're going to get to that next, and then I'll finish off. 1, right, 16. But let's see here. All right, and then they all continued with one accord in prayer. In those days, the people stood up. Okay, Peter stood up in the midst of the disciples. There's that midst again. In the middle of what? Middle of what? Okay, you got to look at that in a spiritual understanding. Yes, physical first. And said the number of the names together were about 120. Wow, 120. What did God say in the beginning of Genesis? 120 years. All of a sudden, he's telling this to 120 disciples. Interesting. Men and brethren, this scripture must needs have been taken place, essentially fulfilled, which the Holy Ghost by the Holy Spirit by the mouth of David spake before concerning Judas, which was the one to guide him that took Jesus, for he was numbered with us and obtained part of this ministry. Now this man purchased a field. Purchased a field, eh? Okay, purchased a field. Purchased a place. An empty expanse. He purchased an empty expanse. A chisel. Wow. Wow. What was between Lazarus and the rich man? What was between the poor man and Lazarus? I think it was, right? The rich man and What was between him? It was an empty expanse, right? It was a chism or a chasm, however you want to say it, right? Talking about the mind here, maybe? Purchased a field with the reward of iniquity, and falling headlong, he burst asunder in the midst, and all his bowels were gushed out. This is quite the scene if you take it physically, right? This is quite the scene if you took it physically. But yet, it's not that he fell and his guts got cut open on a rock and he bursted out in the field, this so-called field, right? What is this saying? He's falling headlong. He's falling where? What is he falling? What's his head? What's actually fallen? His head. His mind. His mind became fallen. In the midst of the what? In the middle of that what? Right? And his bowels, his pity, his sympathy, his inward, just complete, he was in puddles, gushed out, poured out. You got to see this in the heart. You got to see this in the mind. You got to see this in the spirit. You got to see what it's actually saying here. You got to see what it's actually saying here within your mind, right? Seek that repentance and found none. He found none at that point. At that moment in his flesh, he had nothing. Kind of like Esau, right? He seeked it every day in that deep crying and pitiful state, but there was nothing found for him. Same thing with this guy, Judas, but it's much deeper because Judas is from the beginning. The Spirit was in the beginning. So falling headlong, he burst asunder in the middle, and all his bowels gushed out. Okay, so if we read this in the physical, he purchased a field, I guess, and basically he fell off this tree that apparently was in the middle of the field, and his stomach was ripped open and his guts came out. Right? This is you'll get this too, right? You'll get this teaching. But it's kind of interesting when you understand what I've been teaching here, that this corrupted man that had Satan within his right hand, all prophesied, of course, in the middle of this field or in the middle of this empty space, right, this empty area in the middle of the mind, he fell, and he was in tremendous turmoil. And he was crying out his bowels. He was pitying out. He was completely pouring out as much as physically possible his bowels, his heart, his mind. He was in complete destructive state within his mind. He was completely, and the greatest thing in his eyes that he could have done was hang himself. And I can get that. I can understand that. That is certainly something to be looked upon as a great repentance, if you want to look at it in that way. Wow, Judas. So let's take a little look at what David had said, or where this was actually talked about, and we'll see even more of an understanding that it's all about the mind. It's all spirit here, guys. It's not a field that he just... 109. 109. Let's take a little look here and see what he says. 3-20 I have. All right? Let's talk in Christ here. Okay, for the mouth of the wicked and the mouth of the deceitful are opened against me. They have spoken against me with a lying tongue. They compassed me about also with words of hatred and fought against me without cause. Right? Put them to death without cause, according to their law. For my love, they are my adversaries, but I give myself unto prayer. That's not a very good translation. And they have rewarded me with evil for good and hatred for my love. Set thou wicked man over him, and let Satan stand at his right hand. Wow. This is where we get the deeper understanding of the mind. This is where we get the deeper understanding of Adam in the garden. This is where we get a deeper understanding of that hedge being completely breached. Okay, what is Christ? Christ is the right hand, or the right, everything is righteousness and within the mind, sitting at the right hand side of the Father within the hedge middle of the garden of your mind, right? When he shall be judged, let him be condemned, and let his prayer become sin. Let his days be few, and let another take his office. Let his children be fatherless, and his wife a widow. Let his children be continually vagabonds, and beg. Let them seek also their desolate places. Let the executioner catch all that he had, and let the stranger spoil his labor. Let there be none to extend mercy unto him. Neither let there be any favor to his children. Let his prosperity be cut off. And the generation following, let their names be blotted out. Let the iniquity of his fathers be remembered with the Lord, and let not the sin of his mother be blotted out. Let them be before the Lord continually to be cut off the memory of the earth, because they have remembered not to show mercy, but persecuted the poor and needy man, that he might even slay the broken heart. And he loved cursing, so let it become unto him, as he delighted not blessing, so let it be far from him. And he has clothed himself with cursing, like as with the garment, so let it come into his bowels, like water, and like oil unto his bones. Let it be unto him as the garment covereth him, and of the girdle wherewith he is girded continually. This is the reward of my adversaries from the Lord, and of them that speak evil against my soul. He is not just talking about Judas here. You have to go and read this again within your mind and read this garment. What garments? Whose garments? Who's he talking about here? He's talking about everybody that has the spirit of Judas. They're all in a garment, or all under one sinful flesh. Okay? It's all unrighteousness and darkness. Okay? From the beginning, this is all. You have to read this in the understanding of the mind, of the spirit, okay, of the heart. All right? This is important to see here, and I'm going to come back to this because I want to show you what this actually says. Set thou wicked man over him, and let Satan stand at his right hand. So we see the right hand, right? We understand this, but we're talking about this is going to go on for generations. Okay, it has happened before Judas. It's happening after Judas. Now it's open completely. But this is this is an absolute understanding from the beginning with Adam and Eve, within the mind, within their carnal mind, and how they allowed Satan to come in and make their eye dark, be their right hand. And this actual translation has nothing to do with the right hand, even though it works as well and you can use it, but it means the right eye. The right eye. The right eye. The right eye that is always covered, right? The eye that's always covered. Showing, and this is just nothing compared to how many, it's all of these people. It's all of them. It's all the Judas spirited people. All right? It's all those that are on the tree. That tree, they've never been buried again with Christ. They were never taken down in 3 days and 3 nights within him. No. They were left to hang. They're cursed. Abominable evil, these people. And everybody that follows this stuff. They're still on that tree, and the birds of the air. The birds of the air are on them. All right? They're on them. Set thou wicked man over him, and let Satan stand at his right hand, or his right eye, cover his eye. Remember what it tells us in the New Testament? But if the eye is dark, the whole body is dark. Well, we see that now more than ever. Okay, we see this right from the beginning of those that were hung on that tree. All right? Who was on the tree? This, again, the mind, right? The tree. But let me finish here. Let me finish up now about these birds of the air. I keep talking about this a lot of times, about the birds of the air. Okay, and how it's completely and utterly evil. And the birds of the air lodge in the trees. Okay, they lodge in the trees. This is the understanding. You got to see it. You got to understand it. Birds of the air. Who is the power of the air? Birds of the air and power of the air. Okay, you got to put this stuff together. Let's look at this. And I will appoint over them 4 kinds, saith the Lord, the sword to slay, and the dogs to tear, and the fowls of heaven, and the beasts of the earth to devour and to destroy. All right? Fowls of the air. Destroying the mind, destroying the minds of these people, eating their flesh, continuing in their sin. Continuing in their sin. Hung on that tree. They're still on that tree. They're still on that tree. And he cried mightily with a strong voice, Revelation 18:2, saying, Babylon the great has fallen, has become the habitation of devils and the hold of every foul spirit, the cage of every unclean and hateful bird. Babylon. The world, the man. You. Habitation. Wow. Habitation, what does that mean? Dwelling place. Wow. The dwelling place of the mind. You have what? Devils, foul spirits, unclean spirits. You got hateful birds, unclean birds. All demonic, all evil, right? Corrupting man. Because they're on that tree. They were not taken down. Right? They weren't taken down. Like Christ was taken down, right? It's all by, what is it, a coincidence? I don't think so. Deeper understanding, deeper meaning. Hearken, behold, they went out as sower to sow, and it came to pass that some soul fell by the wayside, and the fowls of the air came and devoured it up. Devoured it up. Devoured it up. What does that mean? Well, it tells you in here that Satan cometh immediately and take away the word that was sown in their hearts. The birds of the air, his minions, him, right? Him. Still hanging on that tree. You're left, your mind is corrupted, that the fence is breached, and the birds are feasting on your mind, keeping you in sin. Hope you can see what I'm saying to you. In the 1921, and the remnant were slain with the sword of him that sat upon the horse, which proceeded out of his mouth, and all the fowls were filled with their flesh. They were all consuming, right? Just like that bird. It's like the bird. The bird's on the top of the baker's head, right? The bird's on top of the baker's head, all the way down here, right? The birds that were on top of the baker's head. Wherever it is. Birds did eat them out of the basket upon the head of the baker. Right? I think that's all I want to really go over in this little study of the tree, that those that are cursed that hangeth or hang on a tree. And I hope you can see the symbolic meaning of what's actually being said from the beginning. And I'm going to finish it on this here. Now, there's no record of this that I can see, really. But I find it interesting that these elitists and these guys like to add a lot of things that have deeper meanings that people don't understand, and they put it in your face. Here we have this guy on the left-hand side on the tree. He's being hung on the tree. He'll be left out for 3 days and 3 nights, or essentially forever, until he comes and is buried within Christ, which is not going to happen, of course, for this guy. But it's interesting to see what he does. What does this guy have happen to him? Remember, you got to see this stuff, guys. Got that bird, right? Uh-oh. There's that eye. Oh. Ooh, wow. What symbology there, boy. Incredible. Incredible. Thank you.